So let's take a look at some heavy assault segways with dual-mounted Gatling guns and taser prods for pacifying the masses, not to mention a flexible modular transport kit with a front assault ramp and a choice of tracks and wheels. Hello and welcome back to All Specs Tactics, where today we're taking a look at a few more 3D printed goodies for the channel's Iron Enforcers army. This one's the first major update since the project began a month ago, and I must admit I'm really quite excited to share the results. If you missed the last couple of videos on the topic, as a fun side project for the channel, I've been lucky enough to get the opportunity to work with a cool 3D printing artist called Spiros, and we've been building a miniature army for a grimdark police force. I'm sure the miniatures could be employed for all sorts of other purposes, and the idea is to have this really heavily led by channel viewer involvement, voting in polls, and suggestions for what comes next. This month's releases, both for 3D printed STLs and physical minis, are the Oppressor Infantry fighting vehicle, a modular transport with a whole bunch of weapon options and tracks versus wheels, an Enforcer Segway Squadron, exactly the sort of crazy idea that I wanted to see for the project, so great ideas guys there. There'll be a couple of free miniature STLs on Thangs as well, a tank commander and a basic enforcer on Segway. As per normal, you can get your hands on these via two ways, either digitally via subscription to the Thangs website, reduced to $7 per month to start with a discount code, or physical print miniatures via Wargame portal based in the USA. Both of those will be linked down in the video description. Jumping right into it, the Oppressor Infantry fighting vehicle is the customizable transport option. This was the first decision I asked you guys to make. Would you like a transport vehicle or some heavily armoured elite troops? And you guys went for the transport vehicle really quite handily, winning the vote around about by 80% to 20%. Hopefully those elite troops should be back in the future, maybe can be an option again in a few months' time. The general idea for this one was to be a standard transport vehicle for the Iron Enforcers or whatever army you'd like to employ it for to get about the city, a bit of an urban fighting vehicle for a heavily militarised police force, and the main design features are a turret with paired weapons at the top, a frontal assault ramp to disgorge squads of enforcers into battle with any dissidents about, a detailed interior so you can paint the inside of it if you want to when you can see it when the doors open up, and options for a bunch of different weapons on the turret, a tank commander, and the choice of tracks versus wheels so you could have a really quite radically different one if you wanted. It's got an angular hull and chassis with a whole bunch of rivets, maybe slightly inspired military police sort of transport in the real world. Perhaps the most major design feature are the choice between the tracks and the wheels here. The STL comes with both, so you've got the option to either print out track segments or wheels if you want. I believe that the track segments are just in two fairly major print bits, where the wheels are in 8 individual pieces. A mounting piece for them, 6 wheels, and then there's a bit of a front armor plate, as you can see at the front with the handlebars to give them a little bit of protection from the front of the vehicle. I'll be interested to hear your guys' takes on your preferred one. I think for me, I'm personally more of a fan of the wheeled version. I think that was more in my mind for a vehicle that's supposed to operate for city fighting type things, so I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Otherwise, to deploy the squads of infantry, there's 2 doors. That's how the frontal assault ramp opens, disgorging these squads of enforcers into battle, and there's a rear access hatch as well. I feel like Spiros really went next level by trying to make a fairly detailed full interior for the tank. Cutting away the top plate and turret, you can see the driver and the gunner operator here, and rows of seats strapped in for your enforcers to be loaded ready for combat. The idea is that the engines are at the back on either side of the doors, powering the treads or wheels on each side. Then for the choice of turret options, this is the way that things break down. There's options for some bolt-on add-ons like a missile launcher and light machine gun, and then 2 different weapon ports that could be dual-wield of the same sort of weapon, either an energy weapon, a solid shot weapon, or a flamethrower. You could have 2 barrels with the same loadout, or you can swap one of them out, so say you could have an anti-tank gun paired with a flamethrower, for example. You can also opt to have the gunner in more sort of commanding reconnaissance type mode, sticking his head through the top hatch, and also with the option of a pistol drawn, just in case there's targets that aren't quite worthy of that light machine gun up there. In any case, really quite enjoyed to see the finished result, particularly the wheeled version, which I was expecting was going to look kind of interesting. I'll be interested to hear your takes on the design, and I will mention a couple of bits of the feedback and things that you left me later in the video, which could maybe lead to some options for future adaptations of this chassis. On to the second unit release though, and here we have the Segway Enforcer Squadron. And I must admit I do kind of love these, just the right mix of kind of silly but also done well for me, exactly what I had in mind for the army. These ones were suggested by you guys right away from the first video after the Iron Enforcers army, As you can see here, Draconic Rift had the most upvoted comment on that video, saying there needs to be some kind of sci-fi Segway riders or something, maybe with taser lances, and Mr. Spiros was very tempted to give this a go, even though we had the Oppressor vehicle coming out this month, and in short order we have the Iron Enforcers on Terror Trams. For these guys there's 5 models in the unit, 3 with taser prods to keep the masses in line, 1 with a megaphone announcer sort of affair, and 1 as a more standard one, just actually dedicating himself fully to driving his Segway. Though obviously given that they're 3D printed STLs, if you wanted more of any one variety of them, you could just go for more of that individual sculpt. If you want some over-the-top ranged action, then you've got the option for dual miniguns mounted on either side of the Segway, which I'm hoping those sturdy tracks will have enough grip to compensate for the recoil of, though you do have the option to leave them off if you want to. If you'd rather just have your enforcers unencumbered with extra firepower and focus about keeping the masses in line with their shock weapons, they're vaguely intended for use on 60mm oval bases, though you certainly could use others. I have to admit I really enjoyed this little advert that Spiros created for them. You can either have your basic issue Terror Tram or upgrades to the shielded and the Gatling gun version, roll through the streets and over your neighbours, and they're all supplied by Justice Motors apparently, only for the wealthy upper crust of dystopian society, I'm sure. Here's the full squad of them, all ranked up side by side. We've basically got 3 of them armed with those taser prod lance things, 1 not trying to multitask while riding his Segway, maybe focusing on a bit of firepower if he wants to, and 1 broadcasting some announcements to the masses. These things are at least fairly flexible as well. You could potentially use them as some kind of ranged unit, perhaps printing off multiple copies of the guy on the left and giving him head swaps for a little bit more variation, and he could have an entire force of Caterpillar tracked armed Gatling guns. Or potentially for those of you inclined to think that the Gatling guns are kind of overkill, and you want to try and keep your Enforcer war crimes to a minimum today, you can assemble the Segway things without the Gatling guns that just have the front plate and not the side mounted weapons, so you could have a full on lance armed squad to pacify the masses, if that'd be preferable. In any case, really pretty fun and kind of mad. Big hats off to Spiros here. I feel like the kit's both fun and really quite well designed, so you could use it very flexibly. If you did want to get your hands on the STL files for these to print both the transport and the Segways at home, then essentially this month it's $7 for both of those kits. The website that does it is called Thangs, and they're basically kind of like Patreon for 3D printer creators. The idea is a subscription model so that the creators can keep the cool miniatures coming. I really hope that this can survive into the future and we can keep on doing it each month. The normal sub cost is $10 a month, though there's the introductory code of $7 with the ATL30 code. And the way it works is each month you get the new releases, and things from previous months get put on the store. For anyone who wants to pick them up as catch-up, the profits from the sub are split between Auspex Tactics, so another way to help support the channel if you wanted to, and also fun things to keep Spiros making new miniatures, and hopefully the project continuing into the future and building up a big army range overall. For physical miniatures, the other option to get your hands on these is Wargame Portal. They're a hobby store in the USA that I've had lots of contact with already. They're the channel affiliate link for Warhammer 40k sales and things, and also have the Auspex Tactics merch store. It just so happened that they also are very experienced with printing and selling 3D printed miniatures, and generally have a great record with customer service. For this month's offering, after the time and effort of printing and packaging and sending these and things, the Segway riders are $34 for the kit of 5 of them, so that'll be 3 with the taser weapons, 1 of the bullhorns, and 1 more standard patrolman. The Oppressor's a little bit more than that, and he can offer those at $45 for people who are interested, and he'll have different options for the tracked and wheel varieties. We figured it was sensible just to ship out 1 of the variants of them, rather than making people pay for the resin cost for a set that they wouldn't use. And then they've got the standard Iron Enforcer Patrolman, with the 14 sculpts and a bunch of head offerings for $27.50, with a multi-buy option for any of these kits for 15% off if you get 2 of them, or 20% off if you want to get 3 or more. They can be shipped worldwide from based in the USA, though it does mean that domestic postage to within the US would be less versus shipping overseas. The overseas shipping might be a bit more tempting if you're making bigger orders. In any case, I'll leave the link to that down in the video description. As ever with each project, there will be 3 miniature STLs each month. For this one, for just 1 taste of both the kits, there's a regular Segway Patrolman, an individual miniature completely for free, that'll be over on Thangs, linked in the video description, and for the Oppressor there's a Tank Commander, hefting a pistol and surveying the foe, Could be good sticking out of a coupler or a gun turret or something. He's got an option both for a full-bodied one and a half-body one, depending on what tank you're trying to mount him on. In any case though, that's this month's miniature releases, but now it's time for you guys to decide what's coming in the future. Based on the initial surveys, feedback and polls, I thought for the next couple of months we'd pick out a bunch of things that seem to gain a bit more interest than some, and basically guarantee that we'll do all three of these but in an order of your guys' choice. For the August miniature releases, the choice is either between a jetpack drop troops sort of unit. This is Mr. Spiros' first concept art of them. We might go something similar to that for the armour and feel of them, that maybe work on the jetpack a little bit, and then have some justice descending from up on high. Or for option 2, it's two different units released at the same time, kind of similar to this month with the Oppressor and the Segways. One very popular option from the previous votes was a unit of patrol walkers, some sort of enforcer strider type things, maybe incorporating some searchlights to hunt down fleeing criminals and rebels. Again, that could be a fun one for a sort of modular walker kit similar to the Oppressor. And also one thing that got suggested on the first video quite a lot was a cyber dog handler squad of some sort. That was one that I was surprised I didn't think about in the first place, to be honest. I feel like some sort of disturbing police dog huntsman things would really fit right on theme with this army. I asked you guys for a little bit of feedback as to what you'd like to see last time, that I'll share in an upcoming video depending on what gets selected this month. As per normal with these videos, there'll be an updated miniature poll links down in the video description. So let me know what you'd like to see next for August. Would you like to see some jetpack troopers with some bowl hats, or stomping patrol walkers and some kind of dystopian cyberhound? Otherwise, in a bit of reaction to last month's poll and feedback, I did really enjoy with all the fun ideas that you came up with for different things that we could do to expand the Oppressor. I just wanted to touch on a couple of those now, one small but slightly common criticism, and a few ideas for cool things that we could do with it in the future. Obviously lots of people had all sorts of ideas about it, and genuinely thank you for that, but if I had to pick up on some common themes, a fair few people said that they feel like the tank maybe feels a little bit squat and chunky compared with how they might like it, which to be fair I can see. I feel like it's maybe a bit more of a thing that I'd say about it for the tracked version versus the wheeled version myself. I think it partly comes from the design of the front assault ramp type thing on a fairly small vehicle. The tracks and wheels do need to be kind of wide apart to be able to disgorge its squad of infantry. We had a discussion about it and decided, at least for the moment, that we'd keep it the way it was in terms of a fairly small and squat vehicle. It seemed kind of appropriate to have a narrow turning circle and to be relatively small and manoeuvrable for fighting in dense city streets and things, as opposed to trying to make it a bit more of an elongated type main battle tank type look. One option that I did think about though was maybe that we could do an alternative chassis for it, maybe in a few months' time. I don't think I'll be leaping to try and push for it as a massive priority until we have a few more miniatures out for different battlefield roles, but maybe on the sort of time horizon for around about 6 to 8 months, could maybe release a similar sort of variant vehicle with a similar transport type role and have a slightly more elongated chassis if you'd like, if you guys think that would genuinely improve the miniature enough to be worth the effort of doing so. Bear in mind though that that would come at a cost. It means that it'd take a bit of design effort and work that could otherwise go into another small release, and might mean that we have one less little fun unit to go alongside a major release of the month. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys and put that in a poll in the video description if you'd like there to be a slightly longer sculpt of this miniature around about 6 to 8 months in the future, and do a sort of Oppressor Mark II, maybe with a few other design alterations. Then let me know that, but equally if you'd like to conserve design effort and release slots for other things that we've got to come, then feel free to let us know that as well. Otherwise though, I asked a bunch of questions as to other cool things that we could potentially do with the design in the future. One of the things that was suggested on a YouTube comment were to do a dual build water cannon or flame cannon turret. I feel like that could be a fun little alternative STL project, and that could be a minor release for a month, maybe with a few fun little extras to add some more theme as well. I like the idea of maybe doing an extra tank commander or two, perhaps with the same release. And to that mind, I asked you what sort of weapons you might like to have them armed with, where the winning choice was an energy maul. Feels kind of on theme with these guys, but then a whole load of people in the free text also suggested a megaphone option. And again, I definitely could see that, have some guy bellowing instructions out to the citizenry as the oppressor tanks roll by, telling you very loudly to remain indoors or whatever. Out of the big list of suggestions and ideas, People also suggested things like maybe some optional police lights and sirens and things. Another fun one was to try and make some kind of mobile jail type detention vehicle. I'm not sure if that might be best to implement on this one or try and save that for a future vehicle project if we do one, but I certainly like the idea of that, and feel free to develop or expand on anything down in the comments. In any case, I think I'm fairly set on doing water cannon, flame cannon, and some additional tank commanders and things, so let me know any other ideas for an Oppressor upgrade pack for a future expansion. In any case, looking forward to how this will roll out over the next few months. Here were a few of the other ideas that were voted most popular. I'll try and have a few of these appearing as options for what you'd like to come as a month. Bikers, some riot shield patrolmen, maybe a truck SWAT vehicle, and perhaps some exo-armoured shock troops of some kind. They all seem like pretty fun ideas. And I'm also going to include a couple of questions as to upcoming Patrol Walker releases down in the poll. Feel free to try your hand at naming the upcoming Patrol Walker. I might go for a short list of them in a video mid-month as per last time for an update on the project and just any other fun ideas that we could implement. In any case, looking forward to what you make of the new miniatures. Feel free to check out Thanks for the STL files, our Wargame portal for physical prints down below, plus the polls to have your say on what comes next. In any case, I'll be back for some more regularly scheduled 40k type content next, but I'm quite enjoying this little side quest of the channel. Thanks to you guys massively for watching and sharing all your thoughts and ideas. Really looking forward to what comes next for this one. Hopefully I'll be back in a video in a couple of weeks' time or so, and then for the August announcement equivalent of this at the end of the month. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.